Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
The president's top law enforcement official says there is no fraud that could overturn the results of the election, but that isn't keeping Rudolph Giuliani from coming here to Michigan tomorrow to press his case.
Deadly force. Police opened fire on a murder suspect after he fired shots into a Detroit police station.
But we'll begin with a horrifying attack inside a dollar store on Detroit's east side. 2 female employees robbed and sexually assaulted right before closing time.
Those 2 women then ran across the street for help without any clothes on and waited for police to get there.
Happened at the Dollar Tree on Van Dyke, right at 8 Mile. We bring in Larry Spruill tonight. Larry, these details are just awful.
Awful and just terrifying, Devin and Kimberly. As a matter of fact, we just got a picture of that suspect. Police say that this is the man that they are looking for, who allegedly robbed and sexually assaulted 2 co-workers here at the Dollar Tree at 8 Mile and Van Dyke last night. Now, I spoke with one neighbor. She tells me that this store is robbed often. Tuesday night, Detroit police are looking for this man. They say allegedly robbed and sexually assaulted 2 Dollar Tree store female employees, ages 56 and 43. It all happened inside this Dollar Tree store here at Van Dyke and 8 Mile. Officers responded to this store Monday night around 9 o'clock after getting a call about a robbery.
I mean, it's bad enough that you rob them, but you rape them? I mean, come on now.
This woman did not want to show her face or name on camera, but it has a family member who works at the Dollar Tree.
I have family members who know them.
She says the man walked into the store with a gun.
All of these places are robbed on a regular basis.
Police say the suspect pointed the gun at the 2 female workers and forced them to the back office. That's where he robbed them and sexually assaulted them. The man left, and the 2 women ran across the street to this restaurant, completely naked.
I mean, it's just scary. It is, and I felt really, really bad because it's just it don't make no sense to me.
Now, I want to remind you about that suspect and what he looks like again. Take a good look at the video and the picture on your screen. Police say that he is a black man, about 5'5". He had on a black top with the hood, blue khaki pants, similar to uniform pants, and bright white shoes. Of course, if you know anything about what happened here last night, you are asked to call the police. We are live on the Detroit East Side tonight. Larry Spruill, Local 4.
All right, Larry. Attorney General William Barr says that the Justice Department has not uncovered widespread fraud that could have changed the election outcome.
Regardless, President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, will appear before the Republican-led Michigan Oversight Committee tomorrow. Giuliani will be discussing the 2020 election and alleged voter fraud. The announcement comes a week after the Board of State Canvassers voted to certify President-elect Joe Biden's 154,000 vote victory. Again, no evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election. President-elect Joe Biden introduces his economic team as lawmakers on Capitol Hill remain deadlocked over an aid package.
Team led by Biden's nominee for Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. If approved, she would become the first woman ever to hold that job. Also today, a bipartisan group of senators introduced a $908 billion emergency aid proposal. Lawmakers are hoping this time they can get a deal done.
Let's hope our Democratic colleagues will finally let us make law in all the enormously important areas where we do not even disagree.
The Republican leader's idea of action on COVID has been to bring partisan legislation to the floor and then demand everyone accept it.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had their first talk since the November 3rd election, though Mnuchin says it was more about the December 11th government funding deadline than anything else. Now to the Local 4 defenders uncovering new information tonight after a murder suspect is shot and killed by police on Detroit's east side.
Take a look. That shootout happened on Connor, right at DPD's 5th Precinct. Let's bring in Defender Sean Lay with what he's learned about the shooter and the woman who was killed. Sean.
This all began, you're right, with a 28-year-old woman, a young mother, shot and killed late last night. A member of her family is a state representative. She's been here at DPD speaking to investigators all day long. We also just spoke with her. She says her young niece was the victim of the worst type of domestic violence, and she said her niece tried to get away from this man but could not.
Siobhan literally was an angel.
State Representative Tanisha Yancey, the new leader of the Detroit caucus in Lansing. Her family in Detroit tonight is devastated by domestic violence. Yancey's niece, Siobhan Mitchell, known as Chevy, just 28 years old, was shot and killed at Grand River in Warren at 11:15 last night. Police confirmed to the local 4 defenders the gunman, the father of a child he had with Mitchell, 28-year-old Kevin Fox. And Fox had a history of violence against Siobhan Mitchell.
He actually strangled her to the point that he damaged her artery in her neck.
Kevin Fox had a court date, we've learned, this Thursday in Oakland County. The charge, assault by strangulation last spring. The alleged victim, according to family, Siobhan Mitchell. Police say after Mitchell was killed, Fox drove to DPD's 5th Precinct and opened fire. No one inside the precinct was hurt. Fox then pulled into this entrance of a J-Knapp lot across from the precinct and sent text messages to Chevy's family.
I told you I was going to kill this victim if my child was taken.
Chief Craig says special response officers boxed Fox in, tried to get him to surrender, but Fox was killed in an exchange of gunfire.
She actually was at the point where she had gotten away, so we thought, and he followed her from work. So you need to contact your local law enforcement agencies and shelters to find out the safest way to get away.
A lot more to tell you about this. The family was wondering why Fox was even out of jail after the strangulation charge from this past spring. Again, he had a court date this week. We learned he had a $6,200 bond. He posted that bond, and that's why he was out. Police also tell us he also fired a shot directly into the windshield of a cruiser. The driver, the police officer, was not hit by that shot. He was cut by flying glass. This couple had a 5-year-old little boy. Family members are with him now tonight. Devastating news here, guys. Back to you.
Oh, it's just gut-wrenching. Okay. Sean, thanks.
Let's turn now to today's coronavirus numbers. The state reporting 5,793 new cases of COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. Sadly, the number of deaths seeing a big spike, 190. That includes 30 from a review of past vital records. Today, Governor Whitmer held a briefing detailing what she is calling some very tough days and weeks ahead in the fight against the virus.
Yeah, we want to bring in our Mara McDonald. And Mara, restaurants, we're hoping for a glimmer of what will happen next week at the end of that 3-week pause, but they didn't get it.
They sure didn't, Kimberly, and the governor says it's simply too early this week to determine what they're going to do next week. But she did talk about some of the metrics they're looking at in order to make these decisions.
The next 2 months are going to be hard. Our case numbers, our hospitalizations, and deaths are dangerously high already. And even with our targeted and temporary actions to slow the spread, we expect to see numbers increase.
The governor laying out where the state is today with COVID, and not surprising, the numbers are not great. But there is a little good news.
Test positivity is also showing slight improvements, with the positivity rate declining as well over the past week.
But the governor says it's too early to make the call on whether restaurants, which have made clear they are facing an existential crisis, will be allowed to reopen dine-in during what would typically be the busiest time of the year. Factors that will go into making that decision: test positivity rates, case numbers, and hospital capacity.
We are having constant conversation and updates and discussion about what next steps might look like, but it is too early to tell you what the director is thinking and what our experts like Dr. Khaldun, Dr. Lyon Kello, and our public health experts are recommending.
Back here live, the current shutdown order, which is affecting places like restaurants, dine-in capacity, casinos, movie theaters, making schools go all virtual, those all last through Tuesday of next week. It is unclear whether we're going to hear from the governor by the end of this week about whether they are going to lift or extend heading into next week. We are live downtown tonight. I'm Mara McDonald, Local 4.
Okay, Mara. Well, who will be the first in line to get a COVID-19 vaccine? With the first vaccine potentially available as early as next week, a CDC advisory panel met this afternoon to debate that very important issue.
Our Dr. Frank McGeorge has been listening to the panel of experts, and I hear they have yet to take a vote. Frank?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But, you know, in part of their discussion, as expected, healthcare workers will be the first to receive vaccine. But another important group are really long-term care facility residents and workers. Now, from the standpoint of maximizing benefits, healthcare workers, of course, are important because it is possible for us to transmit an infection to vulnerable people. There's also a multiplier value in preventing us from becoming infected. Also, it's essential that we preserve healthcare capacity and prevent healthcare workers from falling ill. But as far as long-term care facility residents, there are roughly 3 million in the U.S., and vaccinating them in the first group maximizes benefits because, frankly, they are at the highest risk for infection, severe disease, and death. Also, protecting them has the benefits of decreasing hospital use.
Terribly important. Now, the early reports, Doc, suggest that the vaccine is well tolerated, but I understand they also brought up issues about the reaction people might have to being vaccinated.
Yeah, so the data from the phase 1 and 2 trials with both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine actually show that, especially with the second dose, there is a reasonably high rate of fever, headache, and muscle aches. Enough so that they actually talked about not vaccinating, let's say, an entire ER at the same time so that everyone isn't experiencing side effects simultaneously.
Yeah, obviously people have a lot of questions about these vaccines, but you say that's a good thing that people have questions.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I really want everyone to ask their questions and find out the answers. Do the homework that you need to do to feel confident about these vaccines. And in fact, tomorrow at 6:30 a.m., I'll be taking a closer look at the key questions that everyone needs to be asking before you roll up your sleeves.
Exactly. All right, Doc, we'll see you then. We are off and running here at 5. Let's check in with Ben after the snow. Ben?
Yeah, Devin and Kim, we are just about winding up the snow and leaving us not only with dry conditions, but the clouds are exiting too. We'll show you what's to come on the other side. Next.
Giving the gift of warmth and helping Metro Detroiters who may be in need. You can call right now to make a difference as Local 4 and Thaw team up to help people here in our community. The number is 800-866-THAW. You can also make a donation online on our website, clickondetroit.com.
143 inmates inside of the Macomb County Jail have now tested positive for COVID-19. What does that force them to do when it comes to inmate policy when they come in?